Good evening and welcome to the October 8th work session. And we can open this with committee reports and items of interest. Okay, Emily have one, Claire has one, Betty has one, Greg has one. Okay, take it away, Emily.
Thank you. Sustainability Commission has been busy with their work plans. I have a waste reduction committee that's working on 4 different aspects of how we could reduce our waste. I put out a work session poll, which has passed, so at some time we will have a work session on banning single-use plastics and other non-recyclable, reusable containers for takeout and restaurants like that. Sustainability's also been very involved with wanting us to talk about the natural gas franchise. The work poll for that hasn't ended, but it's already on the agenda for November 14th. That's a Tuesday at 12 o'clock here. Human Rights Commission is also continuing to meet. Their work group on homelessness is really dedicated and kind of scrambling for a place to meet and a leader. But it's a really good mixed group of people working for a common cause, and they've been showing many showings of the movie Under the Bridge about homelessness. Haven't been able to get to the Mackenzie Watershed Council, but we still have good water, so I think that's okay. Let's see, the work plans for both Sustainability Commission and Human Rights Commission, and they work really hard on this, and then they work really hard on the stuff in the plan. They're coming to council on November 19th. That's a Monday at 5:30. Items of interest. I'm continue to be fascinated by the need for a place to sleep. So I'm still really interested in this. I think that we're having a huge problem both with downtown and then the spreading ripples of other hot spots. But the most visible face is the people downtown. I've been calling them the sidewalk people because really that's what they are. I don't know anything else about them. And it's worse. And I talk to them and I say, if there was a place to sleep at night, say in the parking garage, would you sleep there? And most of them say, yes, absolutely. Some others were talking today about how they had worked on the tiny houses, but they had nowhere to go themselves, nowhere to sleep. They're hanging out where you can still smoke downtown because they don't have anywhere else to go. And I think we can't wait. We just can't wait. I know that we're working on places, but we need it right now. And it's raining and it's colder and people are getting more miserable and more tired. So let's get this going. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Claire.
Thank you. So I am going to ask this council to consider taking a formal position opposing Measure 105, which would repeal Oregon's decades-old law preventing local law enforcement from being used as being used for federal immigration enforcement. And I recently learned, what prompted me to bring this forward is I recently learned that the city councils of Salem and Corvallis have both taken formal positions, adopted resolutions opposing Measure 105. And since this council has taken action in recent months to prevent our city resources from being used for federal immigration enforcement in anticipation of potentially having that state law repealed, it seems in keeping with our policies to make a statement about Measure 105. So I've already asked the mayor and city manager to look for a time that we might have a discussion about a resolution and vote. And I believe they've identified October 22nd at our 7:30 meeting as a time that we could have that discussion, and we would have a preview of a proposed resolution, so you guys would have that ahead of time. And in the vein of no surprises or last-minute decision-making, I wanted to raise this up and hope that I will have the support of all my councilors in having the discussion and also adopting the resolution. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Betty.
Thank you. The Lane Regional Air Protection Agency will meet this Thursday at noon at the office at 10th and Main. And I just want to remind people that there's always an opportunity for public comment at the beginning of our meetings at 12 o'clock on the second Thursday of the month. I have some comments about downtown. I've mentioned before that I think the garbage cans planters are very unattractive, and now there's a chain around them. So I think that having a chain to keep people from sitting down is going way too far. What we need is places for people to sit, not chained off places. And we do have, now there are chains protecting the flowers are pretty, but the garbage can planters are not that pretty. They're sitting in front of the wood planters, and then in front of that is a chain. Then I wanted to talk about the public forum. I think it's one of the best things we do. It is, people listen to us and look at us, and that's good that we let people, that we're open to the public, but we also, at the public forum, we listen to the public. And we should listen. I think it's a very democratic thing. They get a chance to talk, we listen, we consider, and sometimes we comment. I think it should be totally free. People should be free to say anything they want to say. At times, the comments have been inspiring, really inspiring, times informative, thought-provoking, sometimes amusing, sometimes ridiculous, but it's really good to have a place where people can say what they want to say in public, and to say it to their government, and because we're on TV, to say it to the community. So I think I would be really disturbed if we start telling people what kinds of things they can talk about. Even though some things are disturbing, but that's the way life is. I think that's it. I want to get rid of those chains, though. Thank you.
Okay. Greg.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple things real quick. Very successful conference this last couple weeks back for League of Oregon Cities. Hats off to city staff for all you guys have done to make that a successful conference. And thank you to the mayor and council for your support in making this one of the most successful conferences that LOC has had. Just a couple of other notes. Our focus and our workshops on homelessness and housing were also equally as successful. We had a number of people that turned out on Saturday morning for those sessions, and we are going to be focusing on homelessness and housing as a main thrust for League of Oregon Cities this year coming up in the 2019 legislature. I got elected president, and my vice president is Jake Boone from Cottage Grove. So we've got a Lane County team over the next couple years that's going to be working and driving the leadership on LOC. And Mayor Lundberg in Springfield got elected to the board. So it's all good.
Okay. Thank you. Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. It's always fun for me when I get to say this, but I agree with absolutely everything that Betty said when it comes to the issue of free speech. I think that, I know that the Oregon Constitution protects issues of speech more robustly than does the federal Constitution. I think that's a really good thing. I'm proud to be an Oregonian as a result of that. And I think that having free speech means you're going to get offended. I think offensive speech is a part of free speech. I think risking being offended is perfectly okay and is required for thinking, so I'm all for it, and I'm perfectly willing to be offended.
We light a candle for our...
You and I, right there, buddy. I'm with you. The other thing is around our Wednesday meeting, which I understand is a joint meeting with the county commissioners. Have I got that right?
Yes.
I'm sure we already have the agenda printed for that. I'm sure it's also probably included in the packet, but I haven't looked that far ahead yet. So my question, they have bare land available that they have not built things on. And I would like to add to the conversation the question, would they be interested in building a public homeless shelter on any of their land that is available? If they were to work out such an agreement with the city of Eugene to co-participate. I would like to add that to the conversation. I will probably ask it if it's not. So in the interest of no surprises, I wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think it will come as a surprise to the county, even on Monday for coming into Wednesday, and so we can talk to them about that.
Okay.
Okay. I have a couple of things. First off, I agree with both Betty and Mike, and we'll make some comments before the public forum tonight about how I see that forum, and it just as, reminding people that it's an important forum and a public space, and so I'm with you, and I'll echo those sentiments at 7:30. I wanted also to echo Greg's comments about the League of Oregon Cities, which was really a wonderful conference, and really congratulations to the City of Eugene staff, because they really put together some terrific tours and sat on some really great panels, and people kept coming up to me saying, this is the best conference ever. So I got to take credit for it without actually having done any of the work. So there we go. It was really a great conference, and we look forward to your leadership in that organization. And then I just wanted to bring everybody up to date. We had the second of the Housing Tools and Strategies workshops. This is 32 people coming together for 3 hours last Thursday, and this was sort of the second round. So this time they were broken up into groups that were designed. So the facilitator had created these groups to mix people up, and so it was very interesting to see who she put together, because she doesn't know everybody's personality. She just knows where they're coming from and what their kind of perspective is likely to be. And so they talked about what makes it hard to increase our housing supply, and so these groups came up with these long lists of what makes it hard, and then they were asked in groups again to talk about what their interests are as opposed to their options. So an interest would be livability, for example, as opposed to an option. And then towards the end, the last segment of the meeting, they were given, which we'll go back to next week, they were given a kind of a master list of all of the different kinds of tools that are out there for planning. And this list has probably, 30 or 40 things on it, many of which the City of Eugene already does to some extent. And so at the next meeting, they will begin to sort of crunch through. There will be, there's a consulting group or research group that has done some work on these tools that will be coming and helping facilitate that conversation, and they will begin talking about those. So I just would encourage counselors, if you have the time to sit in, there's room in the back. It's at the Baker Center, November 14th, 5:30 to 8:30. I think it's really worthwhile. They are going to be coming to you with recommendations, and I think you would find that it helps inform your discussion later if you've heard something about how this group got to those conclusions. So just encourage you to come. I find them absolutely fascinating and worthwhile workshops. So that's my 2 cents for that. And now, yes, one more. Go ahead.
I just wanted to give a shout out and congratulations to Civic Alliance on their groundbreaking. Had a wonderful, lots of shovels. You should have been there. It was great. But it's been a long work, and the council has supported it. So I just thank you and congratulations.
That was great. All right. First order of business, climate action plan update.
Chelsea?
Right. Good evening. My name is Chelsea Clinton. I'm the Sustainability Analyst for the City of Eugene. Thank you for having me here today. I also wanted to take this chance to introduce the newest member of our team. Mark Nystrom is in the audience with us. He's our new Climate Recovery Ordinance, and you'll be seeing his face, Climate Recovery Ordinance Analyst, and you'll be seeing his face around more and more. First, I'll go over our agenda for the presentation. I'll start by reviewing the city's climate recovery journey. including a look at key milestones, a quick review of the climate recovery ordinance, and give a brief update on our internal efforts. And then I'll move into an update on our Community Climate Action Plan update, the CAP 2.0. This update will include information on our large sliver shareholder engagement, our equity initiatives, and outreach and communications work. While efforts to address sustainability and energy management date back even further, the city's efforts to explicitly address climate change date back to at least 2009, when we first published our first internal climate action plan. In 2010, the city published its first Community Climate and Energy Action Plan. And in 2014, as you all know, the City Council passed the Climate Recovery Ordinance, or the CRO, and updated it in 2016. Last year, in 2017, and through the beginning of this year, in 2018, the city updated its internal climate action plan. And at the beginning of 2018, we kicked off the Community Climate Action Plan update. We plan to complete this plan in 2019. We are looking ahead as well to how we can move forward in collaboration with our community, and I'll share our vision around this component at the end of our presentation. The Climate Recovery Ordinance. The Climate Recovery Ordinance, or the CRO, has become our guiding principle for our climate work. It includes 4 climate action goals. Of the 4 goals, 2 are directed towards the city organization and 2 are for the community. The first goal calls for all city-owned facilities and city operations to be carbon neutral by 2020. The second goal calls for the city organization to reduce fossil fuel use by 50% by 2030 compared to 2010 usage. Similar to the second goal, the third goal calls for the community to reduce fossil fuel use by 50% by 2030 compared to 2010 usage. And the fourth goal is a science-based goal that calls for the community to reduce its emissions by about 7.6% annually through 2100. The CRO provides the goals for our climate work. The internal climate action plan and the community climate action plan are the city's roadmaps to accomplishing those goals. We presented a summary of the updated ICAP, the internal climate action plan, to City Council in November of 2017. That plan is now finalized and being incorporated into the city's work as resources allow. I'll give a few updates on that work in a moment. And most of the presentation today will focus on the CAP 2.0. I've listed 3 examples of recent internal efforts to incorporate the CRO into city work. First, I wanted to highlight the work that city finance staff have done. They worked with members of the Sustainability Commission to develop a CRO questionnaire to use during the city's banking RFP process. During the first part of the process, banks were screened to make sure they met all of the city's banking needs. Those banks that met that criteria were passed through to a final round. Those in the final round completed the CRO questionnaire, which required reporting around fossil fuel investments and efforts to reduce their organization's greenhouse gas emissions. The final bank selections were based on the scoring from the CRO questionnaire. The second example is looking at a request that came from the Budget Committee originally. Finance and sustainability staff are working on incorporating greenhouse gas emissions data into our upcoming capital improvement program document that you'll be seeing at the beginning of next year. And finally, I wanted to highlight that staff are working with eWeb to explore options to use electric heat pumps or other electric options in lieu of natural gas in the upcoming Echo Hollow pool renovations. They're exploring those options and should come to a decision around that in the next, they said 4 to 8 months. As we transition from thinking about the CRO and the CAP 2.0 work, I wanted to draw your attention to the source of most of Eugene's community emissions. When we think about reaching our community goals, there are 3 big buckets to think about. The 3 buckets include consumption, buildings, and transportation. Consumption includes the emissions created from the goods we consume, including emissions from the manufacturing stage all the way through to disposal. The buildings category includes all the resources we use to heat and cool our buildings. And finally, transportation includes the fuel we use to power our vehicles. You will see these reflected in the CAP 2.0 chapters, which we'll review in a moment. So now the CAP 2.0. As you may recall, the CAP 2.0 project plan was initially developed by a project team that included staff from the Sustainability Office, the Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement Office, consultants from Good Company and the University of Oregon's Community Service Center, and a liaison from the Sustainability Commission. The mayor's CRO ad hoc work group provided input which significantly shaped the proposal. The work group included a wide representation, including representatives from South Eugene High School, EWEB, Northwest Natural, the Chamber of Commerce, and many others, including some of you sitting around this table. This slide shows the CAP 2.0 project timeline. In 2016, the CRO was updated, as we've covered already, and in 2017, the CAP 2.0 project proposal was developed and funding was approved. In early 2018, the project team focused on engagement with large liver shareholders, or our LLS partners, as I'll call them for the remainder of the presentation. In early 2018, we also signed contracts with our consultant partners. Good Company is our technical consultant, and Drawn is our communications consultant, and we hired a CRO analyst. This summer, we convened the LLS partners around each topic area of the CAP. This fall, we will complete community outreach and kick off the equity panel. In November, we will convene the LLS partners again. We plan to release a draft of the CAP 2.0 document in winter of 2019 and complete the community review process then. We will convene LLS partners one last time in March of 2019 to review the results from the community review process and the equity panel. And we hope to finalize the CAP 2.0 document in spring 2019. Our goal date to release the plan is Earth Day, or April 22nd. Next, we'll walk through our work with our LLS partners. The list of the organizations on this slide show all of our LLS partners. They include the City of Eugene, Lane County, Bethel School District, Eugene 4J School District, Lane Community College, the University of Oregon, Lane Transit District, EWEB, the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission, Northwest Natural, the Chamber of Commerce, and Peace Health. Reaching our CRO goals requires a focus on high-impact actions, defined as those activities that have the largest ability to reduce Eugene's greenhouse gas emissions and fossil fuel use. To understand what high-impact actions are happening in this community, the first stage of the CAP 2.0 focuses on engagement with LLS partners, actors that have systems-level impact. LLS partners are specifically defined as organizations who have significant oversight and impact on community-wide fossil fuel use and greenhouse gas emissions, or have the ability to affect or alter systems that will enable the community to adapt and prepare for climate change. By starting with the engagement of systems-level actors, we are laying the foundation to make it easier for everyone, individuals, households, businesses, and other organizations, to take action that supports the CRO goals. For example, by investing in transit infrastructure and services, as well as active modes of transportation, it is more likely that community members will choose lower carbon transportation options. The CAP 2.0 focuses on 6 topic areas: organization and household purchasing, use and recovery, buildings and energy, vehicle fuels, land use and transportation planning, urban natural resources and emergency preparedness, and community health and social services. So you may notice back from the bucket slide that first, when I mentioned organization and household purchasing, use and recovery, translates into our consumption bucket, where a large chunk of Eugene's emissions come from. Buildings and energy translates into that buildings bucket. Vehicles and fuels into transportation. And land use and transportation, there's components that would play into both buildings and the transportation bucket. And then if we look at the last 3, land use and transportation planning, urban natural resources and emergency preparedness, and community health and social services, there's also an adaptation component, meaning that they help prepare our community for climate change as it comes. In July and August, we convened LLS partners around each of these topic areas. We asked participants to provide possible actions their organizations may take. We received about 800 ideas through this process. Some of those ideas were redundant across meetings, some were aspirational, and some could be combined, and so on. We are working with our LLS partners and Good Company to refine those ideas into a list of realistic actions that the LLS partners are committing to taking action on in accordance with our core project commitment of strategic doing. The final plan will only include actions that LLS partners are committing to work on over the next 5 to 10 years. Our next steps with our LLS partners are to meet again in November and consider the technical analysis that Good Company is putting together. Good Company is analyzing the greenhouse gas impact and the fossil fuel reduction from the high impact practices given through the actions from the LLS. And at this time, the LLS will have the opportunity to review the analysis and revise their actions if they would like to do so. The dates and times of those meetings are included on the screen. They're also listed on our website, and we will add locations as soon as they are available. I also wanted to share with you some preliminary information being relayed to us by our technical consultant, Good Company. Based on the actions provided by the LLS partners, it does not look like we are on a path to reach our CRO goals on the timelines indicated. We are still working to understand how large that gap will be between what the goals are and what the targets require and what we expect in the next 5 to 10 years. However, I want you to be prepared that there will be a gap, and we will be looking for your guidance on how to move ahead when we come back to you early next year. Finally, I wanted to share a little bit about the city's participation as an LLS partner so that you are prepared for what the city will come back with in terms of actions next year. You may recall that one of the core project commitments for this CAP update was to add value and build off existing efforts. Operationally, this means we are pointing to existing plans and policies already in place at the city. We are not proposing new actions outside of these plans and policies at this time. Rather, we are pointing to the plans and policies that City Council has already endorsed and committed to supporting over the next 5 to 10 years. So you can see up there, for example, we have our internal climate action plan, and we are also looking to the governor's executive orders around energy efficiency in buildings under the energy and building component. Another example is under land use and transportation. We're looking heavily to the transportation system plan and pulling in actions from that plan. You can probably imagine that this creates a somewhat messy process, as timelines and goals are not always perfectly aligned. One recent example is the Transportation System Plan, or the TSP. The TSP goals are on a different timeline than the CRO's 2030 timeline because the TSP is a 20-year plan with a base year of 2015. The TSP does contain similar goals to the CRO. For example, it contains a goal to reduce fossil fuel use by 50% on the 2035 time horizon. Additionally, the transportation planning staff is working on addressing questions from council from their meeting earlier September, and we expect that we'll learn more about their process in the future, and they'll be coming back to you later this year and early next year with their finalized plan. But the point being that they're on a little bit different timeline with a little bit different goals than our planning process, and this is true across many of these plans. Can I get some help with the slides? Oh, okay. Looks like we got it. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so next we'll talk about our equity initiatives. You may recall that the CAP 2.0 project includes 4 equity initiatives. Because both national research and local experience shows that marginalized communities, such as communities of color, low-income communities, the elderly, people experiencing disabilities, and many other groups are disproportionately impacted by climate change. I'm going to quickly review those initiatives. First, we promised that we would work on building our community capacity to talk about and incorporate equity into our projects. The project team is held to this commitment by including equity as an agenda item on every meeting agenda throughout the project and including an equity lens on the back of the agenda for every meeting throughout the project. As attendees can attest, this was a core piece of the first round of the LLS topic meetings. The second initiative was the CAP 2.0 equity panel, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. The third initiative was to design an inclusive engagement process, and again, I'll talk more about that in just a moment. And then finally, we hosted an Equity Fellow this summer, thanks to a grant from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. Brittany Judson joined our team for 13 weeks and did a great job accelerating the work and building valuable community connections between the city and community partners. The city names the 6 organizations that will participate on the equity panel in September. The organizations are the Eugene Springfield NAACP, Food for Lane County, Huerto de la Familia, the Lane Independent Living Association, or LILA, the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Lane County, or NAMI, and Subsequatha. Subsequatha is an organization affiliated with the University of Oregon's Teacher Education Program, and they work with the Indigenous community. As you may recall, we are paying these organizations to participate on the panel in an effort to overcome barriers to participation traditionally faced by marginalized communities. The panel's goal is to capture and evaluate concerns of marginalized communities as they relate to the CAP 2.0. The panel will meet approximately 12 times over the next few months. They will discuss opportunities and barriers within each of the CAP 2.0 chapters. In addition, they will have the opportunity to comment on the draft plan directly. The project team will work with panelists to produce a report with their findings, which will be included with the final CAP 2.0 document and presented to LLS partners and others as well. Finally, we will be working with the organizations and panelists to mutually build our capacity to understand how best we can support each other as we work to address climate change. In particular, we'll be asking the panelists to help us think through what our inclusive engagement outreach should look like. Our goal is to design a meaningful outreach process to address marginalized communities' concerns around climate change. Finally, we'll talk about our communications and outreach efforts. There are 2 main tasks associated with our communications and outreach work. There's the CAP 2.0 outreach and engagement, as well as the broader CRO communications effort that we were tasked to address. First, community outreach. Our goal with community outreach this fall is to inform the community that the CAP 2.0 planning process is occurring. I presented to the Green Lane Sustainable Business Network last week. This week we will be participating in the Making It Happen, a planning project fair. The details are up on the screen, but that's happening this Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. at the library. We are also in the process of scheduling 2 to 3 additional open houses at different locations across the city. We plan to hold these in early November. Online engagement includes the project website. The website contains information about the planning process, the equity panel, upcoming meetings, past meeting minutes, and so on. We plan to begin using social media at the end of October in conjunction with our open house events and continue that throughout the project. And I also put on here that we have a CAP 2.0 input form online. Members of the public can go online and provide comments on each chapter of the CAP 2.0 using the form, which is at the URL on the screen. And finally, we're working with 4J and Bethel school districts to identify student groups who may be interested in providing feedback on the project. And we are working with the Sustainability Commission to design neighborhood association outreach. In addition to the outreach around the CAP 2.0, our project plan included the development of a broader CRO communication strategy. Drawn, our communications consultant, has been working with the project team over the summer to help us understand how best to communicate to Eugenians around climate change. They conducted 3 unfocused groups earlier this year, one in Bethel, North Eugene, and South Eugene. We also conducted a 4th unfocused group, a Spanish language focus group in partnership with Centro Latino Americano. Unfocused groups are similar to traditional focus groups in that they bring small groups of people together to answer questions around a topic. However, unlike a traditional focus group, which may have asked participants questions directly about climate change, the unfocused group format sought to understand what motivates people to act on issues in their community. We'll use the findings from this research to inform our overall CRO communications work. In addition to the unfocused groups, Brian Taylor, the principal from John, and I met with most of our LLS partners to understand their successes and challenges around communicating to their customers and clients. Taking into account all this information, we are working with Drawn to develop a communications platform that can work for all of our LLS partners to communicate about climate change and how the community can get involved in the solutions. As you all know, the CRO has far-reaching goals that will take many years to achieve. The CAP 2.0 will provide a list of actions our community is committed to taking over the next 5 to 10 years, but we all know that we will need to continue this conversation long after this planning process is complete. So as we move forward, you will begin to hear the project team transition away from the term LLS partner and start to use the term Eugene Climate Collaborative. This represents a shift to acknowledge that we need to continue the conversation with our LLS partners long after this planning process. It also acknowledges that it's going to take a community effort, to reach our CRO goals. As we work with our LLS partners, we are building the table at which the city is one of many in the community working to address climate change. We will continue to look for opportunities to develop tools like our communications platform that will aid the community in addressing this issue together.
Okay, thank you very much. I do have folks in the queue. Mike, to start. I want to thank you for this good overview, and I imagine we're going to have a robust conversation. So I'll let Mike kick it off.
I actually didn't mean to jump in that quick there. I thought you said you had others in the queue, and I was looking to jump in too, but I'll do my best here. Okay, question number. Thank you very much, Chelsea, for the presentation. I guess here is the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th slide. Recent internal projects. Third item. The staff is exploring options to use on Echo Hollow Pool, and decisions will be made in 4 to 8 months. Will the council or the budget committee get any budgetary information on what, as Alan has put forward many times, will be the savings that we will see from using electricity rather than gas, in that both from a capital perspective and from the long-term operational perspective?
So that's a sort of a budget committee question. Can I look to you, John, to answer?
My question was, will the council or the budget committee get to see what those savings will be, capital and long-term operational?
Yeah, we'd be happy to share that as we work through that process.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I had was, in the list of about 4 or 5 slides, large and leveraged shareholders engagement, I noticed that I think you have a lot of the folks who drive major decision-making in the area. However, we seem to be doing this in isolation, and it doesn't seem from this list that there is coordination with Springfield, other communities around the surrounding area, or Lane County. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so Lane County is actually involved and at the table, and we're trying to coordinate efforts with them. I believe they're on the list. Number 2, they're on the list.
They are on the list. You're right.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
And we've been in conversation with Springfield, and I believe at this time that they, for whatever reason, aren't choosing to be involved, but it's an open door conversation with
Have we
Springfield.
invited other communities to join us,
I'm not aware of any other communities beyond that.
like Coburg or Creswell or?
No, we haven't invited them at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question pending other questions. So when we first talked about the large lever shareholders and how that was going to work, my understanding was you were going to convene with them on what their existing strategies were, that they would bring that to the table and we would look at that and then see how far that was going to take us towards our goals. And so what you're describing now is that's what we will anticipate by the 3rd meeting of the large lever shareholders. It'll be clear what their goals are, and you're giving us a heads up that when we get to that point, we are going to be falling short. Mm-hmm. And that was actually anticipated. And so I guess what I'm interested in is sort of playing that out into the future around on what basis would the council be making a decision about that? I mean, will we also get as part of that report a kind of a framework for how will we be able to, encourage these other I mean, are we really a collaborative and we're all going to encourage that we're going to actually up our ante in terms of what we're committing to doing? Or how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so when we come back with the actual numbers, we'll also come back with different potential paths forward. So initially, we planned the CAP 2.0 in 2 stages. The first stage we're in right now, stage 1, and that was to essentially finish the CAP 2.0 document, which has all these actions. And then we would move into a second stage where we would take a look at all the individual action behavior change programs offered around the community and do an evaluation of those to see if there are any gaps. But that phase would really focus on how we get individuals, households, neighborhoods engaged in our climate work. So when we come back with the end of stage 1, we'll probably be coming to you with a list of options where we could continue with that plan, or we could say, let's pause and have a conversation as a community potentially, or as council, what we want to do to address the fact that we have a gap between our CRO goals and our actual actions. If we move forward with if we call it, say, stage 1.5, where we're looking at that gap, we'll have to have a conversation about how to address that. We can come back with a list of high-impact actions that are being researched from around the country, but of course, they take resource to implement and different staffing requirements, and so that could be one path forward. But we would come back with a list of options, essentially, to say we could continue as we planned originally, we could pause and have a community conversation, we could do research and look around the country to see what others are doing, that sort of thing. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I guess it,
I think part of the challenge will be is our ability to influence other large stakeholders. Of course, we don't have a direct authority over them. We have the ability to try to influence them. And so I think, as I understand your question, when we know the gap, are there opportunities to sort of work with our stakeholders in new and different ways and try to influence things differently? Maybe so, and we'll just have to know based on a little bit of what the gaps are.
Right.
Here we go.
right, okay. Because it sort of connects to the question around even internally that we have all these different processes that are on slightly different timelines with slightly different goals. And I guess from my perspective, I would sort of hope that those start to coalesce and make some sense collectively as opposed to continuing to be separate timelines, and that would be one of the byproducts of this effort.
Okay.
Does that make sense, or does that even sound possible?
So it sounds like you're hoping that, for example, the TSP timelines will become aligned with the CRO timelines? Is that what you're saying?
More comparable, right?
More comparable.
So that we have a better sense of where we are in time in terms of, because we've set a deadline, a specific date in time. So it's, where are we?
Yeah, I think we could make sense to try to do that as much as possible. What may come out of the gap analysis is because of the timing difference, and that may be part of what creates part of the gap, and then the question would be is how to fill that gap. It may relate to timing, or it may relate to other actions that we would want to do as part of sort of filling that particular gap. And so I think there's a variety of options once we get to that place.
Okay, great. Betty?
Thank you. I'm interested in what's really changed or will change specifically. For example, for the baking RFPs, what's changed as a result of the questionnaire?
Sure. So for the baking RFP specifically, I believe in our previous process, the finance staff would look at which applicants met our banking needs and just make a decision solely based on that criteria. This time around, all the applicants that met that criteria moved on to a second round, and the final banks that were chosen, there's different parts to the RFP, but the final banks that were chosen in the particular pieces were the ones who scored the best on the CRO questionnaire. So that was actually the final determinant that ended up awarding the bank the contract.
So what specifically has changed?
I think what has changed is selecting the financial institution.
Did you select different ones?
The the financial institutions that we selected are not the same ones that we had previously.
Okay,
Is that what your
as a
question-
result of this questionnaire.
Partly as a result of the questionnaire is, the intent is to select the financial institution that had the least impact on greenhouse gas and best helped us move towards a total CRO goal. And so the banks, financial institutions are not the same as they were previously.
Okay, thank you. And then, can you tell me some other things that are different as a result of the efforts? Like if we had quit using leaf blowers, that would be something.
That's the question.
That's not the, I know we didn't, but can you tell me some specific things that have changed?
So one thing that comes to mind is with our internal climate action plan and the work there. I know our fleet folks are really looking at the fuel we use, for example. So there's a product called renewable diesel, and you can have different mixes. Ideally, we get R99, so it's 99% renewable diesel, and we're using that in our fleet as supply is available, which really helps reduce our emissions. So that's another example. And I know our fire chief has shown great leadership in this area as well, and he's asking for vendors to start providing options, at least for electric and hybrid vehicles. It doesn't mean we're always choosing them, but he's requesting that sort of information so that he's trying to drive the market in that direction.
Anything else? Have we done anything about protecting bicycles from theft, for example?
Protecting bicycles from theft.
If you want to increase bicycle use, which helps reduce carbon footprint, you have to make it safe to ride a bike and park it.
Right, that probably would be a good follow-up question for the chief to respond to. We'd be happy to have him respond.
Okay, it's just another thing that might be specific. I'm asking for specific things that have happened or will happen as a result of the CRO.
Yeah, and we can follow up with a list of different items that have happened already, if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Claire.
Thanks. Well, thank you for the update. I think it's a good thing to have the check-in and for us to see, this work that often happens behind the scenes. I wanted to call out the work on equity, and I think it's really important, and I see that reflected in your report, to keep that in the forefront of this work, because that's going to help ensure that we're bringing as many people together to help find ways to successfully implement the changes we want to make. And, by very definition, our members of our community who are marginalized are therefore both subject to the consequences of climate change more deeply than others, and also to the possible responses we might have as an institution to try to mitigate those harms. So I think the members that you named in terms of the equity panel, are reaching out into those parts of our community that might otherwise not know this work is going on, might have a really important contribution to make in order to help us meet the goals in an equitable way, so that we are not ignoring some consequence of something we might all at this table think is a wonderful idea, but has an unintended consequence on a certain part of our community. So I appreciate the highlight that's been placed on that, and we'll look forward to seeing the contributions from that panel as this work goes forward. On the large leveraged stakeholders, the mayor asked one of my questions, which was, the way I phrased it was, are these entities expected to be making proposals for how they might change their way of doing business to help us meet our goals? And then I think as far as other jurisdictions participating, so you've mentioned that there's an open invitation for that, but I also think that if an entity such as Peace Health or LTD, which does business throughout the county, makes a policy or operational change, those are likely to be implemented in such a way that they would have a equal benefit or equivalent benefit for other parts of the community beyond just City of Eugene. So I think that's something to keep in mind as we think about those large leverage stakeholder pieces of this work. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Emily.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. I think I share a lot of what Betty's asking. I understand before we were doing the goals, and now we're talking about who's going to be included and has the most effect. And so my question isn't really that, but it's along with Betty. My frustration is, what are we going to do? So saying, are these people interested in doing what? You know, what are the options? You know, soon I'll be able to take my food scraps out of the garbage, and I love the electric heat pumps. But there's not enough for me to hang on to still be interested in this. And I think that some things we would do are very, very tiny, like the leaf blowers. They're not, you know, maybe we should shut down the airport. That would get rid of a lot of greenhouse gases, and we could still use leaf blowers. But what kind of things? Because we're not going to shut down the airport. So, and I'm not expecting you to tell me right now, but that's my frustration. And I think if we could even toss out some ideas, it might help the people feel more connected to where we're trying to go. Thanks.
Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea, so much for this presentation. It's very clear and very easy to understand. And I really appreciate how you guys always look at what is really realistic options instead of these aspirational what ifs. And you're really doing what we can actually do to make real change, which is great. And I love this bucket thing you have here with the consumption and the buildings and the transportation, because I guess it's obvious, but I really considered how much consumption is a huge part of this. When we think about transportation, I think is a lot more. So you have this little building here where it's organization and household purchasing, use, and recovery. I just wonder, can you talk a little bit about what your guys' plans are for that section?
Sure. So this is actually a chapter in the CAP. And we had a grant from DEQ earlier this year to actually do a deep dive and get some really good content around this area, which is great. The chapter really, and the grant actually forced us, so that we were pretty voluntary participants, to look upstream at our emissions and understand where are our emissions as a community coming from. And so that chapter really says, like, for your computer, what does that whole life cycle of emissions look like upstream when it's made perhaps overseas, when minerals are mined, all the way down to like when we dispose of it? What are the emissions impacts on our community? And as you mentioned, when you look at the bucket slide, we don't have the numbers on there, but consumption is a huge component of our community emissions, more so than transportation or buildings themselves. So it's something to keep an eye on and certainly take seriously as we address the CAP.
And I think I heard you say that we're not sure if this city, for its two goals, is going to make it, because we're not quite there yet on some of the things we need to know, or do we know?
We have a pretty good idea for the city goals. Our internal climate action plans lay out actual projects that we can complete to hit those goals, at least the targets laid out in the CRO. And then in the CRO says we can buy offsets for a portion of those. And at this time, it doesn't look like we're on trajectory to hit those goals, but there's potential. There's still a few years to complete some of those projects, so it's not completely clear. But the plans are there, and we can track that. We'll have a new inventory coming out either later this year or really early next year to show where we're at.
Thank you.
Mike has asked for a second round. Everybody else good? Go for it, Mike.
Thank you. Your standard Boeing 727 burns 4,500 kilograms of fuel per hour, which is about 10,000 pounds of fuel per hour. So my question is around how we measure the airport and what happens there as a part of our community action plan. Can you help me understand how we capture fuel use of all the planes that go through our airport as a part of this?
Unfortunately, this is a little bit outside of my expertise, but I can definitely get back to you with that information. Yep. I will. Good Company does our analysis, so I'll get back to you with that information about where it's captured in our inventory and how that happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Alan.
Chelsea, I sent you an email earlier. Could you go over the update of where we are with the community-wide greenhouse gas inventory, the transportation system plan to help meet our CRO goals, and the CIP capital improvements program to help meet our CRO goals. And maybe explain what those are, so do that for people
Sure.
watching TV.
So I responded to your email, so you all have the response in writing if that's helpful, but I'll go over it now as well. So the community-wide greenhouse gas emissions inventory we're working on right now, and we'll have that out no later than January 2019. That inventory will be based on 2017 data, so there's just a bit of a lag. We can't actually use 2018 data while we're in 2018. It just doesn't work that way. So that'll be out soon, and that'll capture our sector-based emissions as a community, and that's kind of gets into, there's different methods of calculating inventories. I also just want to flag that we're working with DEQ to come out with a consumption-based inventory. We're a little bit at the mercy of their timeline, but we're trying to hopefully get that out either in 2019, or depending if they have availability, it might be 2020, but just two different methods that we track our emissions with. The CIP plan for helping to reach the CRO goals, I mentioned this in my presentation. The Budget Committee asked for some more information in the CIP document, and staff came back with a memo outlining what we could do to provide that information. And in the email I sent you, it outlines there's 4 different metrics that we're including, and I've been working on this project internally in the last few weeks, and that should be ready for the first rollout with the CIP in 2019. So there's a more specific timeline of the CIP process really in the email, where that goes to execs later this year, goes to the Budget Committee in January, and then Budget Committee recommends the CIP to City Council in 2019, and so on. And then finally, the TSP, we heard from our transportation staff earlier today that they expect to come back with that implementation plan in late January 2019.
And if I understood you correctly, our internal climate action plan, the ICAP, we have a plan that you talked about last November, but we're not expected to meet our goals with the implementation of the projects that are identified in the plan.
I said that we're not necessarily on track to hit our goals right now, as best the data tells us, but the projects are there and we're implementing those as resources allow, so I don't want to prematurely say we won't hit them or that we will.
So, to me, all of this, we're way behind on our goals, on meeting our timelines. We're way behind on meeting our goals. I'm not getting a sense of urgency around this. We don't have specific actions that we're not taking. You know, that when you develop plans like this, you get plans that are bold and they roar like a lion. And then there are other plans that you get that meow like a kitten. And with the exception of the equity piece of this, which I think is very good and bold, all of this strikes me as a plan and an effort that really meows more like a kitten than roars like a lion. And it's very disappointing to me that after the motions that were made at the Budget Committee in February, not 2018, but 2017, to have the CIP and the TSP both get plans to put in place. We're not going to see them until 2019. So we're moving at a pace that doesn't convey a sense of urgency, and it isn't moving us in the direction we need to go at a pace that I'm not even say it's fast. We're not even getting halfway there to fast. So I think as a council, we need to take this a little bit more seriously. I think we need to have more frequent updates. I think we need to ask for more actions from staff that moves us along and shows action towards meeting those goals. So I'll be thinking about that over the next couple of months or weeks, and work with some of you to maybe bring something back to council.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I would just follow that, hearing also what Emily has said, and Betty also, that as those updates come through, some specifics, some specific examples, some things that we can all sort of hang our hats on and say, yes, we're going to do that, will be helpful. And as we're going, yes, Claire.
Yeah, if I could just add to that. So Chelsea, you mentioned that DEQ needs to be responsive in order for us to get data related to our consumption piece of this. Was that
A little bit different. So we have two different versions of our community inventory. The sector-based we do with a consultant locally, and the consumption-based, DEQ is actually the only one in the state that I'm aware of that does that, and they do them for all communities. So you're in line basically to get that done. And we're in line and in the queue to get that done fairly soon.
Yeah, so this isn't meant to be a criticism of our staff, but just to kind of echo what Councilor Zelenko just said. So we're at their mercy in terms of where we are in the queue. We might not get that information back till 2020, yet it's identified as one of the largest contributors to our greenhouse gas emissions in our community. So that's a real disconnect between the urgency stated in our plan and I think in some of our own minds and what we're actually accomplishing. And so, you know, I'll be interested to hear what Alan is thinking and looking for ways also to incentivize us to move this timeline forward more rapidly. I mean, I know it's challenging, but it is urgent. And I think we have a robust plan. It's just taking too long to get to where we're doing some of the things that other counselors are saying, show me the money, basically, right? Yeah, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I think this is really good work, and I also sense the frustration with wanting to be able to go faster. And part of what would be helpful in terms of translating thinking and strategizing into action is to be able to have specific actions. But I know that you're going through a process to try to develop those, and you're wanting to try to involve as many people as possible in that. And so as you prepare those possible actions, and I'm assuming maybe it'll be more like a menu, a whole host of different actions that might be able to be taken. And so if we were to do that, it would be helpful to say, if you were to pursue this strategy, this would be the impact the strategy would have. I mean, I would like to be able to say that if you ground all the airplanes at the airport, this is what it will mean, whether it's in pounds, whether it's in, carbon impact, what would the consequence of that be? If if everybody stopped using a certain kind of product, what would the impact of that be? Because I think having a list of strategies is a great thing, but when I'm evaluating strategies, I want to know what the cost impact it is, but I also want to know, is this strategy more feel good than actual result? There may be some strategies that you say, gosh, I really don't want to go there, but it has a profound impact, just this one strategy. And then we as a policy body can have the ability to balance those and say, there's pain. We talked about pain before. Mm-hmm. There's pain and there's benefit. And what kind of pain do you need to inflict to receive what kind of benefit? And are there minimal pains to achieve maximum benefits? That's why I need to know what the trade-offs are for all the different strategies, what the impacts are.
So just to clarify the request a little bit, our current planning effort is really focused on understanding what organizations already plan to do. So like, for example, for the city of Eugene, it's the TSP. We're not coming back with strategies beyond that may, as you say, provide like a menu of options to choose from. But if that's, I just want to clarify, if that's the request, then we can start looking into that. It's a little bit different than our current planning process.
And I realize that. What I'm doing probably is being more wishful in terms of trying to think ahead, because there's the short term, which is what we're working on right now, which actually overlaps into the medium term. But I'm thinking short term, medium term, and long term, because we've got some significant goals we need to reach by 2030 as well. And so I don't want you to slow down or stop working on the short-term stuff, because that's very important. But I'm thinking as we go, figuring out how we can incorporate more of that consequence strategy menu approach into this stuff, so that when we start talking about next steps or more strategies, we have a good sense of what each strategy means in terms of impact or consequence. So yeah, I'm just putting that in your thinking cap in terms of what I would like to see when it comes time to start deciding about what we're going to pass or not pass.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, I have Greg, and then Alan for a second, and Mike for a third. Okay, Greg.
Now, I know that Northwest Natural is one of our large leveraged shareholders in this group. I'm kind of not saying that they shouldn't be at the table, but at the end of the day, what we're doing with the CRO ultimately limits their financial footprint or their footprint in terms of utilization of natural gas in this area. What do you know what the end game is for Northwest Natural in this dialogue?
What I can say is that Northwest Natural is a business in our community, and they, I think, intend to continue to be a business in our community. And they've come to the table with different ideas and options that they're looking into to work with us as we try and meet our CRO goals. For example, they're looking at renewable natural gas options and other energy efficiency efforts. How they move forward as we try and achieve our goals is something that we'll have to see how that plays out. But we do want them involved at the table because as we look at those different buckets, that buildings bucket, they have a large share of those emissions there, and we want to understand as a systems level actor how they can help reduce those emissions.
Alan?
Yeah, I don't want to leave everybody who's watching or even on the council with the impression that everything that we do in this arena is sacrifice and hard and costly. That's actually far from the truth. Most of the things that we've already done are great examples of things that we can continue to do, but we need to do them in spades, and we'll get them on steroids so we can do them even better. Warm Asphalt Program is a great example that we've done that saves us money, does a better project, and reduces greenhouse gases. A lot of things that we can do in this arena are to do them better, cheaper, and faster, and smarter, and those kind of actions save us money, make our processes better, have co-benefits, and they reduce greenhouse gases. And we haven't even begun to tap into all of those things. Many communities around the country have looked at these things and have a long laundry list of things that they can do that get us to there before we get to all those things that are costly and necessary to do. So, you know, talking about banning all flights out of the airport, it's kind of at the far end of the extreme, which is kind of a ridiculous example. So there's a whole slew of things that we should be doing that are the most cost-effective to do. A climate action plan that lays out all the actions that you can do, puts them in order of cost effectiveness in terms of how much savings they create, and so you start to do them in the ones that make the most sense, or the most cost effective to do, the ones that make the most savings for us per pound of greenhouse gases that we reduce. That's the way that we should be approaching this. So it's not about all the sacrifice and cost and all this stuff. It's about saving money, doing cheaper, smarter, better. And that's what this whole plan should be about. And that's many communities have already done that, and organizations have done that and saved literally millions and millions of dollars in creating a climate action plan to move them forward. So I look forward to ours that gets us lined up in that kind of context.
Great. Let's see, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Alan that we should be doing those things that are smarter and cheaper and faster and better and provide those results. That's why I made the motion to add autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles to TSP, because I agree. And what I'm suggesting when I'm asking questions around cost is because I want to know if we're going to save money. I also want to know if we're not, so that we can that we can make different decisions, knowing that that's our goal too, is to get more economical and wiser. And I certainly don't think anybody's talking about banning all flights at the airport, but I do think that a sense of scale is relatively important to talk about, because a car burns about 2 gallons an hour when it drives around. A Boeing 727 burns 1,500 gallons an hour when it flies around. So, relatively speaking, a plane is 750 cars. And we are talking about ways to limit vehicle miles traveled. We are talking about ways to limit vehicles traveling in our community. And so I think it bears at least looking at what are our measures for how we are at least looking at airplanes and the fuel that they use as it pertains to our plans. And I'm simply asking if we can have some more metrics on that, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. I'm going to wrap this up because we do have one other item. Thank you very much. We appreciate the report and know we had a lot of feedback, but I appreciate the work. And now on to our next topic.
Mike, Alaska Airlines actually has been using biofuels in their
Awesome.
planes for years.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I've flown them
significant-
many times.
Yeah, and you didn't notice.
Nope.
I didn't
I've been
either.
on a plane since 2000, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Manager, next topic? Mike, Mark, we'll turn it over to you.
Mark Schoening, City Engineer. Good evening, Mayor Venus. And for
Days?
31 minus 8, 22 days.
Jeez.
All right, who's counting? So I'm going to provide you an update on the railroad quiet zone, but start with a little bit of history, just since we haven't been back here to talk about it for almost since earlier this year. So going back to 2015, we had a work session where the council directed us to move forward with a quiet zone, and we have over 24 rail crossings in the city in the urban growth boundary and multiple railroad owners. So we came back with a memo that said we're going to start with the 10 crossings between 8th and Hilliard and Van Buren because that's one rail owner, Union Pacific, and it represents, and it's also the line that Amtrak uses, and it represents 70% of the routine train horn noise in the city of Eugene. So establishing a quiet zone is a federal process. Quiet zones are approved by the Federal Rail Administration, and the process is pretty well prescribed in the federal regulations in terms of the measures that can be, safety measures that can be implemented at each crossing, the role of the Federal Rail Administration, the role of Union Pacific as the owner of the line, ODOT Rail as the state regulatory authority, and then the city as the local road authority. So we each have a role, a regulatory role in that process, and there's a process where a diagnostic team is formed with those groups to review each crossing and the measures that can be used at those crossings. So we did that some time ago, and then that formed the basis of our citizen panel to review the improvements that can be made at each crossing. And that panel was comprised of representatives from the two neighborhoods, downtown and Whitaker, from the active transportation community, from residents that live near the quiet zone and residents that lived in other parts of the city but still were affected by train horn noise, residents of the disabled community. And so that group met 7 times and came up with a set of recommendations. They were charged with coming up with recommendations for improvements and also a funding strategy. So the improvements that were recommended and brought to the council were at Lawrence, Lincoln, and Van Buren was to create median centerline medians in the road and use the existing crossing gates. So the median prevents someone from leaving their travel lane and going around a closed gate, and that's one of the cheapest alternatives, but there's restrictions on where you can use those. And then at Monroe, Madison, Washington, Pearl, and High, the solution was to add, so all the 10 crossings currently have gates, but they only block the direction of travel you're going in. And so people can drive around the gate if the gate is down. So the idea is by adding 2 more gates, you block all access to a close, or you entirely close the crossing when a train comes through. So those were the options at those crossings. Jefferson Street is a little bit more complicated because if you're familiar with that crossing, there's a spur line that serves the grain millers. So a standard quad gate system doesn't work there. So the idea was to turn that into a one-way for a short section and then use the existing gate to block that crossing when trains are present. 8th and Hilliard is also complicated because of there's very little room on the river side of the tracks to be able to provide access to both the university property and what is now the Urban Renewal Agency property and part of the downtown redevelopment project. So that one involved building a roundabout on the river side of that that would get traffic away from the crossing and provide that separation and make that crossing safe. That one's a little complicated in that the property is currently owned by eWeb, and they're they're planning to, and it's the site of one of their hazardous sites that they're cleaning up, and so they need to mitigate that site, and they're planning to do that in the summer of 2019. And then the city would either acquire a right-of-way easement or a right-of-way in fee title. It's still to be determined to be able to build a roundabout on that property. And then the last piece was approximately 7,000 feet of linear fencing, 7,000 linear feet of fencing to fill in the gaps along that section of those 10, between those, the linear length of those 10 crossings where there's missing sections of fence. And that was, the idea there came from our citizen panel about even because if you have trespassers on the rail line, it doesn't matter if you have a quiet zone or not. The train engineer is going to blow the train horn. And so the idea is to try to prevent as much trespass as possible by closing the gaps in the system. So the council approved the safety measures in May of 2017, and then we came back in February of this year with a funding strategy, and it was to fund the 7 westerly crossings with road fund at $3.6 million. So $1 million of that was done in supplemental budget in fiscal year 18. $1.3 million was appropriated this current fiscal year, and $1.3 million will be in next year's budget. And then the East End crossings on the 3 on the East End were estimated at $3.7 million, and that was funded by Urban Renewal District funding. And it also required the expansion of the Urban Renewal District to include the Pearl and High Street crossings. So those 2 actions have been taken by the Urban Renewal District Board, which is essentially the City Council. And then the final piece was the funding of the fencing, because that's outside of the Urban Renewal District and outside the right-of-way. It's not eligible for either urban renewal money or gas tax money. So it was the idea was to fund that out of the beginning working capital or general fund money. So either in this supplemental budget coming up in December or next supplemental budget in 2020. And so that'll totally fund the project, and it'll be included in the 6-year CIP that you'll see next January, both the funding that's already been appropriated and the funding needed to finish the appropriation. So going forward, that we'll initiate this fall. There's following the federal process, there's initiation of intent or a notice of intent filed to create the quiet zone that we'll submit to Federal Rail. As part of that federal regulatory process, we'll enter into agreements with Union Pacific, because Union Pacific does all the design and construction of the improvements within the rail right-of-way, and then we do all the design and construction of the improvements that are outside the rail right-of-way. So, so they move forward when funding is available. So we'll enter into those design and construction agreements with Union Pacific. We're in the process of putting together crossing orders. So the state's role is to issue crossing orders for each rail crossing. Crossing orders exist for all the rail crossings now. Those will be modified with the outlining the improvements we tend to move forward with. And so that's a state process we go through. And then the goal is to be in construction in 2020. When construction is complete, we issue a notice of quiet zone establishment with the Federal Rail Administration, and it's more, at that point, it's more of a, it's more just following the process. If we've built everything according to the requirements outlined in the Federal Registration, or excuse me, the Federal Register, then there's not a decision to be made, yes or no, about whether or not you receive a quiet zone. If you make those improvements, you receive the quiet zone after going through the process. So the public involvement in the kind of from here on out was we had a pretty robust process with our citizen advisory panel. So from this point forward, it's more similar to a street project or a paving project, and that we'll be working with the adjacent property owners and businesses to kind of fine tune what the improvements will look like, and also to mitigate the impacts of construction. We'll continue to, we've just recently updated our webpage, we'll continue to do that as a resource for people that are interested in where we're at. And then And I think we'll more periodically update the council through the council newsletter. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful. We'd just gotten some inquiries about that, and I wanted to know what the timeline was, so I appreciate that. And we have some relevant projects dependent on that, so good to know. So Claire and then Alan.
Yep, thanks. Happy to get this update as I enjoyed my back porch this summer and had to pause many times in the middle of my conversation to let the train pass before anyone could hear anything I was saying. I thought, this might be the second to last summer that I get to experience this. So you mentioned the changing of a section of Jefferson to one-way at the grain millers. When is that planned to occur, that switch?
Well, that would happen in construction in 2020.
Okay, so during the time that we're doing the actual construction, we would convert that section to one-way. Yeah. And some folks may remember it used to be a one-way street for a long, long time. And presumably the grain millers will be very involved in that construction and
Yes.
trying to mitigate impacts on their operation.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks.
Alan?
Thanks, Mark. So you threw out a lot of dates there. So make it a little simpler for me. When do we start doing stuff and when do we end to get a quiet zone? And all the billion pieces in between, which are all important.
So we've been doing stuff for quite some time, so.
Like 10 years.
Right, for 10 years. But in terms of the council did appropriate funds early on to do the process with the citizen panel, but we spent more, because we're working with the rail, ODOT Rail and Federal Rail Administration in Union Pacific and trying to nail down what's possible. We spent more on surveying with the surveying for the design and the design work, so we're much farther ahead than we normally are. That's why I said we've been doing a lot of work to date. Yeah. So some of these milestones are just following the federal process with the different notices that we do and the ODOT regulatory process. But it's really getting things queued up to be able to go to construction in 2020, that construction season. And the improvements, with the exception of the roundabout, the improvements are pretty straightforward.
And they can all be done that construction season.
Right.
And so you mentioned that Union Pacific does the design and the construction of things within their right-of-way, and we pay for it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then the second part of this has always been all the other railroad crossings. So we're just focusing on the first part, which is the 10 that are in the downtown. Then there's the next group of them that are to the west. And I don't want us to lose that notion and keep our eye on the ball that's always important too. So are we starting things now, because this does take a long time to queue up, are we starting things now that'll allow us to do that in a more timely fashion when we get to the appropriations for that next set of things that we're going to do?
Yeah, we have not, partly because this has been pretty time consuming. And I mean, you raise a good point about, is it to the west or is it actually to the north? Because there's two more crossings to the north on Union Pacific that are under county jurisdiction. They're within the urban growth boundary. So, so I mentioned that the 10 crossings in the city are 70% of the noise. I think you add the two more that are under the county jurisdiction, you're up to another 20% of the noise. So almost all the routine train horns come on that Union Pacific line, because it's both Union Pacific and Amtrak.
Okay.
But we can start that conversation with the county.
Yeah. Do we have we started that yet? Or
No, I say we could.
We could, yeah. I would think that was something we would need to get going, because it does take a long time to get these things in place. Right, and thanks for the update, and thank you for all the work you did on this over the years to get us to where we are, where we're actually got a plan to get it all done in 2020. And we'll hold you to that, Mark.
We'll call you back.
Date will be done.
Okay, Betty, and then Claire has one more comment.
So did I understand that we're using the road funds, the funds that people voted to repair the roads for this?
No, we're using the funds that, if you remember in the last legislative session, the state increased the gas tax
No.
statewide, and the city gets a share
We're
of
using
that.
those road funds, not the
Yes.
ones that people voted for.
No, we're not using those funds. Those are strictly to a defined set of pavement preservation projects.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, Claire?
Yeah, just real quick, I'm glad Alan mentioned Phase 2, as we referred to it when we had this initial conversation, because I just recently got an email from a gentleman up off of Highway 99. Now, he was concerning a private rail crossing and trying to get some response from the Railroad Administration. But when we were talking about the quiet zone previously, I got several emails from folks at those county crossings, and I would refer them to Commissioner Bozovich, who sometimes would say, well, we're trying to give that crossing to the city. So the county doesn't want to deal with that, basically, and I would respond, well, it's yours right now. And who knows when it will become ours. So, people are very interested, and anyone who might catch this conversation who lives in that part of town might be sending me an email right now to say, yes, I absolutely want this quiet zone to be extended. So there is still a real desire beyond those 10 downtown crossings to see the trains quiet throughout the city.
Okay, Mike?
Mr. Manager, we're having these conversations, and I too, with constituents in the Santa Clara area, obviously, have folks asking me, hey, what about my neighborhood? It gets pretty loud out here too. And I've been looking forward to our Phase 2 conversations, knowing that they're coming. But I'm wondering if there are industrial impacts to this conversation as it pertains to some of our other conversations with industrial properties in North Eugene. Are there negative or positive impacts to this quiet zone conversation on any other conversations taking place in the industrial areas in North Eugene?
Not that I know of, but I guess I would need a little bit more information to get
Well,
a sense
I'm trying to be, I'm trying not to get too detailed about this because we can all get down that hole for a very long time. But Claire mentioned, other crossings that are in the county, and I know there were some, for example, that the city was seeking the opportunity to have rail access for the sake of annexations that may or may not take place in particular areas in order to accommodate expansions and other industrial things that are taking place. And so my question is, does the quiet zone work or anything that's happening in North Eugene have a negative or positive impact on any industrial conversations that are taking place?
I don't know either any positive or negative. My first blush would be it's sort of neutral, but I don't know if Mark, if you have any.
The downtown Whitaker quiet zone, I can't imagine would have any impact on any conversations in the industrial area to the north.
Yeah, because one of the things is we know once it's quieter downtown, we'll have another opportunity for housing in that area that wasn't there previously, and low-income housing and so forth. So I'm just saying, have we thought through the idea that there may be positive or negative effects on other industries in North Eugene that may or may not be affected? And it sounds like we're too involved in that, but I know you'll follow up on that now. Thank you.
Okay, I think that wraps it up. Thank you very much, Mark, for coming back, and we are adjourned until 7:30.